UKLC is presented by Barclays and Curry's PC World.
Welcome back to the UKLC. One more game of the night, and it is London Esports taking on Bulldog. Bulldog absolutely confirmed for a relegation spot. There is absolutely no way they can even get out of the bottom two in this scenario with only 3 games left. And actually, I think with that the Envision win, Demise also in a barrage also in a situation where it's very unlikely that they can claw their way out of the relegation zone right now. But let's focus on London and Bulldog here, because the big story for Bulldog is, despite their position in the table, despite really not having much left to play for in terms of positioning, they have made yet more roster swaps. And this time they have brought 2 veterans into the fold, Nutri in the jungle and Snuggly in support. 2 players with like wealths of experience, both of them with a great head for the game. And maybe this is what they need to give them a bit more of a steady ship in terms of getting a win in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair one. I think Nutri has wealth of experience. I think he outmatches a lot of players, even in the NLC, in terms of experience. And Snuggly, while not on that same level, did obviously play in the UKLC when it was our Tier 1 league for the UK for a significant amount of time. So a lot of experience here, a lot of veterancy, and hopefully that's enough to show up the issues, because we've talked about this Bulldog roster a lot, and we've looked at the likes of Thomas Go in the mid lane and said how he's been a standout player, and it just felt like the ship was collapsing around him. And this could be enough, especially against a team like London, because London are arguably one of the best teams in the league, and then at the same time one of the worst teams in the league. And you can never tell. It's a coin flip. It is the epitome of a coin flip for this team, because some days they perform and I'm like, wow, they destroyed Munster in a way that makes me question, are Munster even that good? And then some days they go up against the likes of, I mean, just any team. Like, there are so many teams that they've gone up against, and as much as they don't have many wins, it's like they've had consistent bad games. Last week they lost against Demise, and obviously Demise, you know, they played pretty well. I'm not going to fault the other teams for coming out and standing up, but it feels like London are just, it's all or nothing. And it's really, there's no in between. It's like they either stomp or they get stomped.
Yeah, I mean, they lost to Barrage as well. One of the few wins that Barrage have actually picked up has been against London. So it's, again, this is a bit of a coin flip team, but when they play well, they are like one of the best teams in the entire league. Look, guys, we're going to cut to a quick break again. We are trying to rapidly move on towards Champion Select, so we have our final game coming your way very soon. final champion select of the night here at the UKLC. And Bulldog, even, I was about to say Barrage, Bulldog looking to get their first win on the board. Again, they keep experimenting, they keep switching up, and maybe this is the formula that will eventually net them at least a victory, because as I said at this point, there's no way that Bulldog can escape relegation, but they can escape the 0-14, which is definitely what they want to avoid here. Syndra ban, Karma and Ash ban here against them, with the Galio followed up. Chimera has played a lot of Galio, so making sense. They're kind of focusing out Chimera and his ability to impact the side lanes.
Yeah, I mean, London have been playing this really early focused team compositions where they just want to dominate and early pressure with things like the Callisto, the Galio. So good to shut that down, because I think it can cause a lot of issues, even though it has been a bit inconsistent against some teams. Ultimately, I think this is a situation where you just want to diminish the tools from London and then hope that they make some mistakes in their execution. Hope that in the early plays, they don't come out well. Because I think, for me, London as a team have been one who like to come out swinging. And if they fail on that, they struggle. And also, they're very reliant on Warden to be performing, for them all to be performing. So things like Galio can obviously facilitate a jungler heavily with priority, with the ult to sort of facilitate. So I think it's a good ban away. And a lot of these picks do shut down that mid-jungle combo. Essentially, they have left this Karthus open.
And that'll be locked in straight away for London on blue side. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. Freddy is just apparently just having the time of his life barking at something. It's going to be a Senna lock-in here, something that we've seen some teams have mixed priority on. And it looks like Bulldog are going to follow up by going for a set, which does indeed get locked in, has that flexibility to either go to Zyko in the top lane, can go to Nutri in the jungle, or even to Snuggly on the bottom side of the map as well, in combination with that Senna.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong combo with the Senna, because obviously you have that engage potential. You follow up with the Senna. You have the sustain to help keep the set healthy. But we're going to get answered in with this Kha'Zix. So it's going to be a Karthus most likely in the bot lane for Golden God. We have the Karthus coming in for Warden, something that he can apply a ton of pressure on. And actually I mean, that's just so much execution, in all honesty.
Oh, my word.
That's instantly making the life of this Senna difficult. Like,
and
to an extreme degree.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some Kha'Zix pop up on this latest patch. The Pyke did get a few changes over the previous patches as well. Nutri, though, they will lock in Elise, which is something that I've kind of attributed to Nutri. Nutri's one of those kind of, I would always consider them like an early game ganking jungler, very kind of pathing focused, got a great head about the game. So Nutri is going to get their hands on Elise to kick things off.
Yeah, I think for them, it's definitely something where they can look to pressure the Karthus in the early levels. Level 3, you can just 100-0 the Karthus and get away without even suffering too much because of the repel. So looking to challenge those early levels and try and make things difficult for the composition of London if you are looking towards the bot lane. And also even the Kha'Zix himself, if you are looking towards the Kha'Zix, you can definitely find that 100-0. At level 6, it becomes a bit trickier. But if you land the Cocoon, you're going to come out favorably for the most part, unless he's really fed.
Yasuo and Irelia banned, by the way. What does that tell you about what London are planning here?
It's just targeted. It's just Zyko's picks. Yasuo Irelia, very big for him specifically. Last split, I believe, or might be the one before, but when he was last on... Yeah, it was the one before last. When he was on Demise, he was big on both those champions. So specifically denying him, and then Snuggly coming with the Alistair. So a bit of an interesting one here, because it is a big pick for him in particular, but obviously he hasn't played for quite some time, had a split off, and Alistair isn't really as much in the meta, but did get buffed. So shot a cooldown on the Pulverize, so you're going to be CCing in those heavy combats more often, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to be in those heavy combats more often because there's so much mobility on the Pyke and the Kha'Zix, and the Karthus just makes it problematic to stay in a fight. And I think for me personally, one of the problems with Alistair into Pyke is that, you know, he can just essentially eliminate part of your HP, and it means your ult is a non-factor because it reduces damage, physical and magic, but not true damage. So not too sure on that pick, but definitely some comfort here. I think that means we might see just a normal AD carry center that takes the farm, because I don't see an Alistair taking farm really. But yeah, that's, I guess, just how it's panned out. And the answer coming in from London is the Orianna for Chimera, no big surprise there. And then just a Scion for Beartree, so more comfort to sort of match up with this really spicy assassin focused composition they got so far.
Yeah, that's honestly, for me, if London win, they're gonna win really hard. Like, they are going to absolutely like devastate Bulldog. Bulldog actually going for the Azir here in that mid lane, which means we're going to see Zyko on the set on the top side of the map. Nutri in the jungle with the Elise, obviously, in that center. Alistair in the bot lane, as you said, less likely to be the fasting center, more likely to be the AD carry center, who did recently have a small buff to their soul collection rate from like 1 point something percent to 8 point something percent. But I'm looking at London and I am scared of their composition. There is just so much damage, so much carry potential. Everybody is a threat on this roster, including the Scion, realistically. Whereas, you know, I look at a Bulldog and it's like maybe Misclick and Thomas Go and Zyko and obviously Nutri if they snowball, but yeah, I just feel like I'm a bit more scared looking at London's comp.
I mean, it may be scary, but it's super gold reliant because champions like Kha'Zix, Pyke, even Karthus, if they're not fed, if they're not doing damage, they don't offer very much. So it is very snowball-y. You know, you have a composition where, I mean, that's true, I guess, for Elise. She does just become a cocoon bot if she doesn't have the gold. But it's like Alistair has CC, Set has CC, Azir scales incredibly well. Senna is at least going to be able to pick up those souls and has the utility of the healing. Whereas I think for London, although it's different to what we've seen before, because there are scaling elements in the composition compared to like the Callisto Galio, which was super like crush lane, it's still momentum based because if these champions fall behind, they are just going to feel a little bit useless and they're going to be more reliant on the likes of Chimera on this Orianna. So it is very much going to come down this early game. I think Nutri against Warden is going to be a super hype matchup. Nutri obviously with wealth of experience, but up against this Kha'Zix, up against this player who London rely on heavily, if he can shut down Warden, if they can shut down Warden, then it could be a really good game for Nutri here. Yeah,
I think actually that's something to keep our eyes on because the big story for Bulldog is bringing in a new support and a new jungler to try and refresh and revitalize the roster. Because Thomas Go has always been the guy who's been on the edge of carrying Bulldog. He's always had really good solo performances, but just hasn't had the roster built around him to facilitate that. And actually, I think every iteration of Bulldog, I felt like they've got better. And I know that feels weird to say, but every iteration of this Bulldog roster, I thought they're getting better. They're taking steps. It's baby steps, but they're getting to a point where I could actually feasibly see them winning a game. Is this the time round? And I guess the big reflection is what you mentioned. It is a very gold hungry composition from London. If they snowball it, it's going to be over in an instant. If they can't snowball it and you're kind of starving out Warden, you're starving out Raisins, then they might struggle. They might struggle to have the same kind of impact.
That's such a cool skin, by the way. The
Senna
one, the high noon one with the horse.
I've actually never seen that, but and that's so cool. The horse, that's amazing.
Definitely didn't instantly buy it when it came out, even though I don't play much Senna. No, definitely not. That's not me, Xander. How can you accuse me like that?
I mean, I would have instantly buy it, and I'm actually awful at Senna, like really awful at Senna.
That's really cool skin. I like the old. I just like the high noon skins, like in general. Like the Lucian one's really cool. Actually, my skin I always use on Yasuo is high noon Yasuo. I love that when like when you do the Q, the Steel Tempest, it makes like a gunshot noise. It's so badass.
It's what I really liked about. I mean, that's probably what most people liked about Old Graves with the Riot skin. He had a really like satisfying clunk when he did a basic attack.
I mean, I think pre-Weaver Graves, I think my favorites were either Mafia or Pool Party. Pool Party had that cool like noise whenever you auto attacked, and then Mafia, I can't remember the exact noise, but I just remember it being super satisfying. That's the thing I miss most about Old Graves. It's just the auto attack. Like, make a new champion and give him those auto attack animations, please. That's all I want. In all honesty,
mate, bring back Old Graves. I loved Old Graves.
Why can't we just have two Graves? Graves had a twin. We never realized this whole time, So we can have old and new Graves.
They have almost the identical kits, but Old Graves is just better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Raisins. But it has been confirmed that this is indeed going to be just normal AD carry Senna. Something that we saw Reckless play in the LEC. And actually, they won with it somehow. Like, did you see that game, by the way, the Misfits Fnatic game?
I didn't actually catch that one.
Oh my word! Just if you're a Fnatic fan, it was hard. It was hard work.
I think it's one of those things where like the AD carry Senna, the buff to her soul rate essentially just made her viable. You know, that was the main thing, is it made the champion viable. And Senna in general is pretty strong. Like the kit is inherently strong. You have the stacking from the souls, you have healing and damage. There's a lot of versatility. You have CC safety. Like Senna's kit is just powerful. And I think this is a situation where she's going to bridge a lot of the issues for Alistar. Like she has follow up on the CC, she has the healing. The level 1 of Alistar is really weak, but Senna's not too bothered about it in this situation. It does mean they will lose priority, though. That is the big concern, because Karthus can just perma push up with no concern. I think that's the biggest change that happened to Karthus, was the fact that even when his Defile isn't active, he gets mana back when he kills a unit now. So it means you can just spam your lay waste and shove the wave, and you're going to get a decent amount of mana back as long as you're hitting the last hits. And then as a result, you can just continue to apply pressure in the lane, and not many champions can keep up with that sort of tempo.
That feels really fair and balanced, you know? Being able to just perma spam Q.
I mean, you look at Syndra, who's also like a permaban. What does she do? Yeah. Look at Azir, who just drops soldiers. And I mean, priority is just important. Being able to shove the lane is super important. And that's why a lot of these champions have so much value, because essentially it means that you're able to get there first when your jungler's fighting for something. And with how important junglers are at the moment, with how much gold they can get from being ahead. I mean, we saw last game where, you know, Alex was miles ahead and it ended up being super relevant. If Warden finds a similar situation, he could end up winning this game. And now he's looking for Zyko. Yeah,
Zyko, great face breaker there, Zyko. But he's forced to flash away regardless. I don't think he was in a huge amount of trouble there, but maybe Beartree was charging up that Q and he had to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, I think maybe just concerned, didn't want to risk it, but I think you might be right. You maybe able to get out of that one. Ultimately, that's how the 1v1 matchup should go, is that Beartree tries to charge up the Decimating Smash and you just pull him out. The important thing is you have to make sure you're within range, because Decimating Smash much higher range than the Face Breaker.
No, this is where Sion.
I know you love Sion. You little one trick.
I know. Such a good champion. He's like one of those champions that's just like really simple, and I like that. Even
I will say,
like, yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna add on, but I will say, like, Sion's rework is probably one of the best we've seen.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it was so well done. And I feel like there's a lot of skill expression with a champion, even though he is simple. It's like hitting a good Decimating Smash, landing the ultimate, stuff like that.
And to be fair, old Sion was just nutty, like just absolutely tragic design. Oh, old Sion made me laugh, dude. I remember when AP Sion was the thing, and you would just like hit Q and then run at them with the shield and then run away, and that was your entire kit. Like the rest of your kit made no difference. That was your entire kit.
In fairness, like when Sion was first reworked, he wasn't exactly great, because like, do you remember when you know how you can roar the minions through other minions?
Yeah.
That used to be super powerful, and you just used to max that, and you would just poke the enemy person as Sion. You just launch minions at them, and just they couldn't do anything about it. That was not fun. But he's in a good spot now.
That's true.
Yeah, anyway,
I do remember playing that Sion where you just built AP and then maxed E and then hit everybody for like crap tons of damage.
Not balanced. Anyway, so first dragon picked up by London. Obviously, with the Kazakhs, you have a lot of damage onto objectives, especially after the buffs, to have even more isolation damage. They're able to pick up that dragon early, which is important, especially if you're concerned about the impact of an Elise. It's going to be less relevant later on when the dragon is when less relevant later on when Soul is going to be on the cards, is what I was trying to say. And right now it's been a pretty slow one, which I think London ultimately fine with, but it's not like Bulldog are going to be too concerned.
No, and they've still got the scaling of Senna, they've still got the scaling of Azir, and these champions eventually start to outrange a little bit. You know, they have those very long-range team fight capabilities, especially Senna, who's going to gain range as the game goes on. And then, you know, if Warden doesn't get insanely fed, it's going to be... Well, actually, I say that Pike can combo pretty well with Warden in terms of pressuring, but there's a lot of peel there. You know, you have Snuggly, who, with the right place pulverize, is going to be able to sort of peel for misclick in these team fight situations.
I mean, it's ultimately going to come down to backline access. Can London threaten the backline of Bulldog? If they can come out successful. If they can't, they may just end up struggling a bit. It's not to say they don't have a backline themselves. Obviously, the Orianna's good. They have the Scion as a front line. But like you said, the range advantage is going to be prevalent if Thomas Go and Misclick can keep safe.
It looks like that perma pushing of Golden God right now on the Karthus, just generating a small CS lead up against Misclick in this side lane. Decimating Smash wasn't used previously, and so was able to get a good bit of damage back there onto Zyko, who they've just been trading blow for blow in that top lane. As you said, it's a very comfortable pick for Bear Tree, who's played quite a bit of Scion actually throughout the UKLC.
Yeah, has, and a pretty consistent one. Also offers that big engage potential. Obviously just charge him with the ult, and then Orianna can follow up. I think as well, if you ult, you layer that into Decimate and Smash into Shockwave, it's devastating. London feeling confident start this up, and with the priority that Karthus achieves, then, you know, why not?
Exactly. It's so difficult to shove back against Golden God in this side lane. Like, and with the controlled wards they've got, Nutri just didn't feel comfortable face checking there.
Yeah, which is the right call, absolutely, but it does just mean you're giving over a lot of pressure to London for when they want to use that Herald. Now, Karthus can shove the wave in here. What I want to see is a reset, head down towards bot side, start getting set up for that dragon, and then you can use the Herald to try and get some space to pick up that second one. Once London have the second dragon, they're going to feel really comfortable.
Misclick will get a couple extra souls here. Zyko just, I think until, he might be going Blade of the Ruin King, right? And I think until he hits that threshold, he's going to have no love versus Bear Tree in a side lane. I don't think he's going to get a solo kill here until he hits the Blade of the Ruin King.
No, I think Bear Tree's pretty confident. Scion is one of these tanks in the top lane that actually holds his own pretty well against a lot of bruisers. More so than the likes of something like Maokai, who can sometimes have a rough time. Scion tends to trade pretty well in the early game. Later on is where he has a bit more problems, but you know, at that point he can just join in with a fight and press R and job done.
And even in the side lane, he just presses Q on the wave. At any stage in the game with a Scion, you can just press Q on the wave. And you're going to be able to clear waves pretty nicely in the tower. One of the benefits of Scion, actually, when he's trading up against bruisers, you just have that built-in shield. So you're always able to take kind of risk-free engages because you're able to negate quite a decent amount of damage just through the use of that shield in general.
Yeah, and then you do become a bit of a super tank later on with just the free HP stacking your passive, which in a comfortable spot now. As was expected, London. Oh, shuffle comes in from Thomas Go, but Chimera does flash. So you're happy with that trade in terms of trading a summoner for the ultimate, but that means you're not going to have it available for that dragon fight in 15 seconds. You already have vision control achieved by London here in the river as well. If you can actually move over, you can see there's not really too many ways in. Nutri's trying to find an angle, but he is going to be spotted out when he takes that route.
And Thomas Go still got his flash.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's when Thomas Go takes that, still got that flash and that shuffle, he'll have to get out of the attempted gank here coming out from London. Nutri still not confident to move into that river area, and that's one of the things that London has had over Bulldog in these fights. It's just been complete control of these neutral objective areas, and it's been so difficult for Nutri to actually go forward because of the lane priority. Realistically, bot lane has been shoved in constantly, mid lane has been kind of middle of the ground and no real advantage either side, and Nutri just hasn't had the support. No one has been able to join Nutri in terms of searching for side lane priority. Oh, fully charged decimating smash. You love to see it, man.
It does so much damage, and it seems like Zyko is going the Blade of the King for the strength of the side lane matchup. Like you said, it's been pretty slow, and it is going to be a Cloud Soul, which is actually not bad for London. I think particularly on Warden and Raisins, quite nice, and also the reduced ultimate cooldown is something. But it's not exactly like Ocean or Infernal game changing. Now, Snuggly's looking!
Snuggly goes in! Headbutt pulverized combo, and Chimera with no flash available being forced out the side. First blood goes over to Zyko in the top side of the map, and I really don't think this Karthus ultimate is going to do diddly squat here. Beautiful engage from Snuggly, and unfortunately Nutri bit off more than they could chew. Chimera with no flash should eventually go down here, but kind of an unneeded kill, I think, to go over to Chimera.
Yeah, I definitely think they could have just backed away, but unfortunately Nutri does go down. But Snuggly coming in with the Alistair. What a play that was. Making his return to the UK scene in style. And we said the Alistair's comfort for him, but I did not. It'd been such a lull. It'd been such a slow game, and he just goes in huge with that one.
That was insane, dude. Like, and there isn't really like a huge wombo combo to speak of from Bulldog, but Snugly sets up the fight perfectly. They still lose the dragon, obviously, a little bit too late for that, but you will take those kind of engages, especially as you've now funneled a little bit of gold onto all of your solo laners and all of your carries. You know, everybody's picked up a kill in that scenario, which is really nice because those are the guys that you want to have the money.
Yeah, and I think if you have follow-ups from Zyko or Thomas Go, those engages can really work. And I think the reason it's so impactful is that for London, you need some initial damage down. You know, you need people low on HP so Raisins and Golden God can finish them off. If you're going to finish them off...
Yeah, Warden. Oh, he gets blocked from jumping over the wall there.
It's a lot of damage from the Kazakhs.
It is. Just no vision control in the river either, apart from that one control ward, and Warden was able to get around that. And that might now open up this bot lane tier 1 as Snugly gets pulled in by Raisins. Snugly taking a lot of damage. Does dodge out the ultimate, though, from Raisins there, which is nice enough. And now Misclick gets pulled over the wall and forced to flash. And the route is there for Warden. No Karthus ultimate for the time being. No one there to support the Bulldog roster either. And Nutri's just trying to find a way in. He is, but he's a defensive cocoon. He's going to be forced to dive away. But, I mean, good defense. The healing is from Misclick. Snugly also able to make the healing come through, too. So they don't get dove, and they don't give up any more than they needed to.
I mean, just the crazy thing is the buffed Kazakh's damage on that Isolate Q is just insane how much it's doing. And London do answer back pretty well. They won't be able to find this tower just now. UG's moved down, and they're going to be enough just to stop the pressure from London for now.
That's all they needed to do. They just needed to stop that turret from going down, stop a potential tower dive from happening. That's all they needed. And a small gold lead built up for London at this point in time, but nothing really to write home about. Still a pretty even game coming into the 15-minute mark.
I had a point before which I didn't get to finish, so I guess I'll go back to that. It was just about how Golden God and Raisins, both their ultimates are good for finishing off fights. They're good for, you get someone low, maybe they disengage, maybe Karthus dies, maybe Raisins finds the opportunity for resets. But they're both kind of conditional on damage already being down. And so that's why they need to sort of be the ones dictating the fights and starting them, so they can get a bit of damage down, they can start getting their resets, they can start chaining kills together. Kazakhs as well benefits from that too. And that's why if there is an engage from Bulldog, if they find a good engage on London, they can really come out ahead from that. It is going to be very much the team who instigates these fights, finds the initial pressure, can come out really heavily in favor of them.
Blade of the Rune King has now been finished up for Zyko, by the way. That might be enough to give him an edge in that split push potential versus Bear Tree, who has only got the Sunfire Cape to write home about. Now, obviously, Sunfire Cape is a good pickup for the Scion, and actually with no teleport, Bear Tree is hovering in the wings for an ultimate. He's just looking for an angle to charge down through that lane. Obviously, with no teleport available, it's actually going to force the teleport out of Zyko in this scenario. Like, third dragon is definitely worth contesting for the Bulldog roster, and they're actually going to start it up. They are split out now between the two sides of the London roster. That's the initial damage that you talked about. That's immediately coming from Karthus. Zyko finds the engage onto Raisins in the backline. The rest of Bulldog forced out snugly now, taken down by Warden. The split composition from Bulldog, and actually Bear Tree, along with Chimera, able to single-handedly zone out the rest of the Bulldog roster. There was just no focus from Bulldog. Split their comp up entirely around that dragon.
Yeah, very split, and there wasn't that ability to follow up. There wasn't that ability to have Thomas go and misclick DPS from a safe distance. Ultimately, just ended up favoring London there, because London love picking off isolated targets. That is a critical thing, and they were able to do that so effectively. They get the dragon, and now one away from Seoul. Kazakhs is 3-0, and we talked about Warden, being the linchpin for London. If he does well, the team tends to do well, and he is now extremely fed, about to hit that level 11 spike, where obviously we'll be able to upgrade a second ability. got the Duskblade now. I mean, he is just going to one-shot the squishier members of Bulldog.
Yeah, and misclicks are really not going to survive very long in these engages, especially with the dive buddy of Raisins. And like you said, and we saw previously, Golden God able to just throw down the ultimate to find that initial damage to start things off. Raisins will pull snugly in. Nutri, they are almost 3 levels down on Warden here. Has not been a good game, but I really feel like it's because Nutri has been constricted in what they could do because of just the lane priority being in favor of London pretty much the entire way through.
Yeah, particularly the bot lane has been troublesome for Nutri, and they just haven't really been able to get in the game. But now, looking for the Herald, but London are wanting to contest this one.
They are. Golden God. He's on the sidelines here. He's going to get potentially caught out. Nutri takes so much damage straight off the bat versus Golden God. Snugly out by himself, and Thomas Go going to be forced to dive over the wall. Warden on a rampage right now. Misclick cannot find the 1v1 damage. Oh my word, Warden's damage is absolutely insane. And this is where the snowball begins for London. Nutri will trade back. They will find a kill, but not before Bear Tree and Chimera can finish the job. Going to be a second Rift Herald of the game. They trade only 1 kill. And really, Bulldog, I don't see how they can return from here.
This is textbook London on a good day. This is them having the early momentum and just continuing it. And it's like, we're going to look for Golden God. I don't think he wins that 1v1.
I don't think he does. I think it'll be difficult, especially without the Blade of the Marine King and the ultimate to work with.
I'm just going to take the Herald in this situation. This is going to give them even more power. Fancy throw that down top lane for the quick tower, or save it until Dragon spawns. Now, Cloud Soul doesn't tend to be the most powerful, but on champions like Kha'Zix, who already get movement speed for their ultimate, it can be really valuable. Karthus, obviously, it's kind of bad on, but you know, it varies. Definitely an Infernal would have been the worst case scenario. If London had an Infernal Soul, it would be really rough to deal with. But even so, it's the goal difference here that is really the massive thing. 7,000 is the lead. Sorry, 6,000 is the lead for London. And it just feels a bit insurmountable at the moment. You don't really have the damage to deal with them.
They have this insane scaling as well, you know. Karthus, hyper, like, super tank top lane scaling. Chimera scales pretty well as well. Raisins is a decent scaling in terms of execute damage that's always going to be relevant throughout this game. Zyko trying to go toe-to-toe with Bear Tree. There's going to be the ultimate coming through. He's going to force the flash over the wall as Chimera runs in. And I think this will be it for Zyko. The ultimate, I mean, that Senna ultimate does nothing. Oh my word. It did absolutely nothing. Snugly not able to find Raisins, and they lose their top laner for a teleport and a Karthus ultimate at the end of the day. But they do lose, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, which is just showing London have the answers in this situation. They're not even willing to give you a small advantage. Now, Thomas Go is Thomas gone.
And we're going to be saying that a lot this game with the amount of burst damage that's available now for London. Don't really see a way that the Bulldog find an edge in this game at this point in time. Another turret falls, another few hundred gold in the bank of the London squad, and I feel like it's going to be another game that we have to wait for Bulldog to find their next win. I think you're dead, Nutri.
Yep, they are definitely dead. So, bit unlucky there. London's still fishing for more now, threatening the tower in this situation, and Bulldog can just watch.
Well, how's your day going?
Not too bad. Better than Bulldog's day right now.
Bulldog, we are back into game. Sorry about that, everybody. We had a slight technical issue that we had to work through. Their breathing room might be appreciated for Bulldog, though. They need a bit more time and a miracle, really, to find an edge back in versus London at this point.
Yeah, so just to bring you back where we were before the break, Baron was taken by Bulldog, but they got smashed into the ground as a result, and I believe it was only Thomas Go who survived. Yeah, you can see the Baron buff on him there, so it's something. They deny the Baron from London, but they don't exactly give themselves more space. You can see Golden God and Chimera both have Rabadons. It's still not looking good for Bulldog.
And I think, you know, this is one of those times where I want to be realistic about the game chances. This is almost certainly a London win. What I tried to look for, and especially what I've tried to look for Bulldog, every time that we've seen them play with a new roster, is what has been good for them. What can they take away from this and say, well, that's something that we can use. And for me, like, there has been moments where I've been really impressed, like that Snuggly engage, the way they played that small team fight. I just wish they would draft more priority in lanes. Like, I just wish they'd be a bit more active in terms of giving their jungler some space, because Nutri this game couldn't really do anything. He could never get out of his own jungle because there was no priority for him to work with.
Yeah, I mean, given how the Carthus is always dangerous, I think a lot of teams have shown that they're not willing to do that with how powerful it is. And also just maybe a composition that has a certain point where it flourishes, because it's not flourishing right now.
No, unfortunately, Thomas Go did not get the shuffle, and Snuggly tried his best here, but Golden God, you can see why that Carthus is so regularly banned. There will be a 3-kill slaughter on the top side of the map, and this is now maybe going to open up the top lane inhibitor turret. In the meantime, Bear Tree, he's just, I mean, he's actually going to win 1v2. Or there. It's close. Definitely close.
Yeah,
there was
a bit too much healing.
Yeah.
Oh, he actually got away.
Oh my word.
Would have changed the outcome of the game, but they were hoping at least get that 1 kill.
Warden's just trying to stop Zyko here. Is aware that burst damage is pretty easily negated by the set, but Warden is so blinking damaged. I was going to say tanky, but he's just got so much damage right now. Jumps in, tries to get onto Misclick here. Just diving back and forth. He gifts a bit of free gold over to Misclick. Pads that KDA out.
I'm not sure what Warden was doing in that situation. Definitely could have gotten out. And instead decides to go in. So I think maybe just getting a little bit overzealous with the game end feeling quite close. But now a little bit of breathing room for Bulldog. They'll pick up some camps, try and get some experience. But right now it's like Chimera's level 16. You're comparing that to like the 13 of Misclick. I mean, Golden God's 2 levels up, Chimera's a level up, and Thomas Go only just caught up to 15. We said this was a very momentum-based composition for London, and I mean, they have the momentum.
Oh, it's 12k now as well they're working with. I mean, that's a monumental lead at 26 minutes into the game. Like, I don't really feel like there's going to be an edge. Actually, something that I've noticed about League of Legends over the past few years, and I know it's a conscious decision from Riot to do that, but like 30 minutes is like considered late game, like a lot of the time. We very rarely see games go beyond that in a lot of scenarios.
It's so easy now to close out with Baron, or like Baron, not so much close out instantly, but get a lot of work done. Souls are so powerful. Elder Dragon buff is so powerful. It's basically just making it so when you're ahead and you get those buffs, you should be winning, which I think it makes it more entertaining to watch for sure.
Raisin's looking for a quick pick onto the Bulldog roster in the mid lane. Misclick's actually putting out a decent amount of damage, but the thing with Senna is she's so slow and labored, and that can be quite difficult versus the high-paced team fights that London can bring. Zyko just tickling Bear Tree on the side lane. Bear Tree still just becoming that super tank to deal with. The Bramble Vest picked up as well to try and shut down some of the healing that Zyko's putting out. London just trying to seek any kind of opportunity here to look for a single pick. Credit to Bulldog. They are trying to push down mid. They are trying to search for something here. Going to work around that tower. The Elder Dragon is up and available. They know that they need some sort of miracle team fight to work with at this point in time, and that's what they're going for.
They just can't give up the Elder, because when you already have so many executes, the Elder just makes it impossible. And now they're looking to force the fight.
They have to. I mean, they lose inhibitors anyway here to Bear Tree. They just have to go for some kind of engage.
Snuggly's so low already. I mean, if Raisins ults him, he's just dead.
They're going to stop the backs. They don't want those backs to come through, and Raisins tries to dive in. That's the first ultimate. That's the second. Raisins instantly finds double pick here. We'll get a third on the back of that final hit, and now this should be game ending for London. Bulldog just too far behind, and who is surprised at a 12k deficit that Bulldog can't win a team fight? Teleport on the spot. Thomas Go shoves Bear Tree onto tower, and then will flash for a single kill. But the Nexus will fall, and London, about 30 minutes into the game, will hand Bulldog their 11th loss of the season.
And again, we saw London as a team who are very coin flip. They can have some games where they underperform. They have some games where they just look lost. But that was not one of them. That was a game where they looked crushing. They picked a lot of power picks. They were willing to bring out the Kazakhs for Warden, the Karthus in the bot lane for Golden God, and they performed extremely well. And with, again, as you said, the priority wasn't there. Maybe leaving the Kazakhs up, sorry, the Karthus up was a big problem for Bulldog, but this is a new roster essentially, and they're still taking time to form up. And as much as I say that London are a coin flip roster, they're at the top of the table for a reason. And I think it's a bit more favorable than 50-50 for them, you know. If anything, it's like you're rolling a dice, and when they roll a 1, they're underperforming. But on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're pretty good to go. And here they showed that off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about that game. It just felt like from the Karthus pick, I almost feel like opened the coffin, and then the gameplay nailed it. Like, I feel like the Karthus just gave no priority to Bulldog. Nutri couldn't, they just couldn't get into the river. Like, I don't even think I saw in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game Nutri ever get a foot in the river, because the vision control was too strong, priority was too good for London, and Nutri never had the support, or even like the attempt at a support, for being able to be more aggressive in terms of putting vision control down and establishing control around early objectives. London just had Bulldog in their grasp from the very get-go.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to break out of that, especially as they are one of our stronger teams you're facing up in your essentially your first week with this new roster, with the new setup. And there were moments where they looked to challenge. That combo coming in from Snuggly was really hype, but it's not enough to have a couple of good moments.
You need to have a good game, and I think we've seen good moments from Bulldog in lots of their games, but they just aren't quite able to. And I think you know, they have got a pretty tough remaining schedule. I think the one game where they maybe, with this roster especially, could pick up a win is potentially against Barrage, because they have one game left versus Barrage, but otherwise they're facing Munster, and I think they're facing M&M maybe. They're definitely facing Munster, so I don't see.
Actually, they have Munster tomorrow. Then next week they have Barrage and Envision. So I think those are potentially winnable. They're not easy, but they're winnable. I think the one against Munster is a hard ask, but again, I mean, that's the thing, is that you have nothing to lose at this point, and I think at least they showed they were willing to try. Like the nice combo from Snuggly and the follow up from the team. It's showing life, and I think that's the main thing, is that this team isn't making playoffs. It's just impossible for it to make playoffs now. It's just about putting a decent performance on and then trying to fight your way through to avoid being relegated. And that's all we can really ask of them. So any moments where we see some life, we can praise. But I think Bulldog showing, again, on their A day, when they're performing up to their standard, they are just so good. It's just, do this more. Don't just do this occasionally. If this can be London every single day, then they're going to be the best team in the league. But you need to keep the consistency up.
Well, we've got maybe one of the masterminds behind the London squad ready for an interview in the form of Raisins. I heard him chuckle at that, but I mean it. Let's bring Raisins in to chat about that game. Obviously, Raisins, you have been kind of stalwart player in the UK scene for quite some time now. You've kind of settled into this roster. You know, got an incredible head for the game. This game we really felt like the Karthus basically won the game from the very get-go. How did it feel? How did it feel for you guys? Obviously, it's like, let's take nameplates off, right? Look at just draft itself. The Karthus just seemed to give you so much flexibility on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, if you noticed, wherever this champ goes, he gets priority, and it's very, very hard to contest him on the wave, even in matchups where you need to kill him. His range is just absurd, and that's probably why you'll see him like in ERLs being picked bot lane, and he's a first pick bot laner in my opinion right now. And wherever we go, wherever we send Mr. Golden God, he just delivers pressure, and I don't even have to be there, which is why I can pick Pikes. So, yeah.
So for you, obviously, we've seen Karthus emerge on this patch. You've seen Kha'Zix emerge on this patch. Both of those, something you picked up. Do you feel like you guys as a team are very quick to try these new picks and see what works for you?
Yeah, I think it can definitely be a double-edged sword. Like you see us try some stuff like set a Soraka bot and it doesn't really work, and then Alawi, and then you see us try stuff like in this game. So I think our team is really willing to experiment, and that's like one of our strengths, but it's also somewhat our weakness because, in my opinion, a lot of the games we lose, we punish ourselves in draft somewhat. So yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look at the games you've got left, you've got Barrage, which you're playing tomorrow, and you've got M&M, and then you've got Enclave. So two strong teams that you've got to sort of at least, I think, realistically look to beat to really secure yourself a playoff spot here. Do you think the experimenting time for London is done? Is this it? Is this buckle down, sort of bring out the best London possible for the next 3 games?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think you're probably not going to be seeing like random stuff. Like I don't think I'm going to be playing Ashe support, for example. But the stuff that is really strong on the patch is still like we need to discuss whether we want to play because we may not have played it before. That's kind of what you're seeing with Kha'Zix and with Karthus. They're just incredibly strong champs on this patch, in our opinion at least. But yeah, we have 3 really important games to get into playoffs, so that's our goal now. And it's going to be pretty. Next week is going to be really spicy, depending on how tomorrow goes for us. Next week is going to mean a lot.
So for you guys as a team, obviously the best of ones have been a bit hit or miss. I'd say there's definitely been some performances I don't think the team would be happy with. But going into playoffs, obviously going into series, how do you guys think you'll fare up in that, and what strengths do you think will really shine when you get to a series in the playoffs?
Yeah, like I said, our tendency to want to experiment is a double-edged sword in best of ones because you show something one game and it fails. Everyone looks at you like, what were you thinking? So in best of 3s and best of 5s, it's a lot more like back and forth. There's a lot more deliberate picks, and I think those, like our team in scrims, for example, is much more controlled if we know what we're going into, like a best of 3-4. So it's our team is very explosive in best of 1s, and in best of 3s and 5s, I don't think we're going to have any matchup problems at all in UKLC.
Well, that's encouraging to hear, mate, because we always kind of put you down as one of the best rosters in our entire competition. And
Thank you.
when you play like that, you certainly show why that's the case. Definitely one of the more dominant games. I mean, again, obviously versus Bulldog, who have had plenty of their own issues throughout the entire split. But if you can replicate that, even versus Barrage, you're on a good track for the end of the season here. So, look, Raisins, we've got to close it here. We've been a bit behind schedule all day, so thank you so much for joining us, mate. And yeah, good luck for your remaining games.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, let's take a look at the standings, because obviously we've had another day of UKLC and we can take a look at where we are. And really, nothing much has changed. You've still got Barrage and Bulldog, but most importantly, with 3 games left in the split, Barrage can only tie up against Envision and Demise. And even then, you're looking at head-to-head records, at that point, which are going to come into play. So Barrage's fate is kind of out of their own hands for that relegation spot at this point in time. But Demise upwards, there is still just 2 wins between Munster and Demise. And between Enclave and Demise, there is just 1 win separating between 5th and 2nd place. We have a very close middle of the pack here in the UKLC.
But for the first time in a while, we have a front runner. Munster Rugby is actually ahead. For such a long time, we've had ties and ties and ties, and now Munster on top at the moment. And obviously that could change tomorrow, that could change next week, but it's just showing that even though things are close, they were definitely closer at a point. Things are starting to spread out, and the main thing is, as long as you're making playoffs, because we're gonna have a lot of fights to get there, if you're making playoffs, that's the goal. Whether you come
Absolutely.
first or fourth, if you're at playoffs, you can, if you play like the best team there, you will win the tournament, and that is the important thing. So I think coming up to now, it's less so about where you are on the leaderboard, as long as you're in a sort of comfortable spot to make playoffs. It's more so, how are you playing? How is your current form? Because M&M have just had a shaky one today, whereas I see Munster look consistent. We've seen London stepping up, Enclave, who even knows. I think it just shows that as much as we're seeing ties still between some teams, the current form is going to be the big teller when we go to those playoffs.
Oh, yeah, I think that's going to be the case for sure. Guys, let's take a look at the schedule for tomorrow. Have a look at the games that we've got coming our way. London versus Barrage, I just mentioned it to Raisins in that interview. First game of the day. Envision versus Enclave will definitely be an interesting one, especially after the way that Envision played in their game today. Demise versus M&M, that's also going to be good. You know, Demise going from strength to strength, it seems like, throughout their games, and M&M seemingly looking a little bit weak. They were exposed versus Envision today. And to round things off, look, it would take a miracle for Bulldog, I think, to win against the best team in the league, but miracles can happen. And they could be delivered by Snuggly himself with that beard in the bot lane. But we'll see what happens when we get to tomorrow. And those are the games. Anyone that you're particularly looking forward to? I think me, for sure, looking towards that M&M game up against Demise. But anything that you're particularly excited about?
I think Enclave and Vision is going to be an interesting one because I think, again, we're seeing Enclave looking rough, even though on paper they're a strong roster. They're at the top of the leaderboard. But in Vision, beating M&M today was just massive. Like, I wouldn't have expected that. I think that was probably the matchup I thought was going to be most one-sided. So, again, transit of properties don't always apply. I know, obviously, there's a situation where one good game doesn't mean the team has figured the whole thing out, but that could really see Envision taking a game off Enclave and starting to surge up the standings.
We'll have to see what happens, guys. We're going to close it out there. Thank you so much for joining us here at the UKLC. We have 3 games left of the regular season. Everything to play for with the middle of the pack looking so close. And make sure you don't miss out tomorrow. We'll see you then.